Thanks for coming to the talk. It's called Algorithmic Fate, an exploration of AI's ability to predict the course of destiny. Um, we'll discuss how AI is evolving to predict and even influence human outcomes. I do want to warn you that this presentation does go off the beaten path a little bit. It talks about theoretical concepts and some outlandish viewpoints about certain things that I personally don't even understand yet. But I think it's essential for us to be aware that these things exist and some of this research is happening. Let's see if we can get this slide to the next one. Okay, so quickly about me. My name is Chris Glanden. I run Barcode Security. We're a cybersecurity services firm, and we discuss a lot of these types of unorthodox security topics. So with that, this is how it's going to break down. First, we're going to touch on the rise of predictive AI. After that, consciousness, intuition, and non-locality. Then we'll get into neural access and predictive interfaces, followed by predictive systems that shape lives. So the rise of predictive AI. So we all know that predictive AI is no longer just a theory. Honestly, it's embedded in everything now, and how we shop, how we learn, how we interact with systems today. And the way that happens is it all starts with the data. So generative AI models like ChatGPT, for instance, other LLMs, they collect and process an ungodly amount of information. ChatGPT started with 570 gigs of corpus, a 570 gig corpus of text data, and now I think it's over like 12 million queries a day. And not to mention all of the data harvesting that Google and other big tech are doing on the back end to help feed some of these systems. But we do know that those types of LLMs aren't truly thinking, but their design algorithm allows them to make predictions based on their corpus of data, creating responses that often mimic human reasoning. These abilities can and do often lead to highly accurate predictions in areas like customer service, medical diagnostics, and even our judicial process. But this introduces the question, if AI can closely predict those use cases today, is it possible to scale that out and over time increase the accuracy to where it can accurately predict and or influence life-altering events? We don't need to dissect this graph, but it basically charts out how predictive AI has evolved from basic rule-based systems derived back in the 1950s up through modern day. And then advancements within predictive analysis have become extremely useful and accurate, again, in everyday life. Some examples that we all know and are familiar with is Amazon's product recommendation engine, sort of scary, and Google's Neural GCM, which is their weather prediction model. So now let's talk about consciousness, intuition, and non-locality. The future of AI may involve more than data and code. It may involve us in ways that we fully don't understand yet. With that, again, we're going to kind of talk about some unorthodox theories here for a moment, and get into some topics that most people haven't given much thought to, including myself, until I started going down this rabbit hole. And here's a perspective that I found very interesting. It revolves around the concept of how the future might influence the present. And the two main components here are non-local information space and temporal entanglement. So non-local information space, it is like a global web where knowledge and consciousness are connected no matter where or when they exist. So example, if you have a group, say you have a group text, and you have everyone's ideas instantly appearing on the group text, but you have no idea where they are physically or when they're putting this data in. It's just a very simple way of how to think about how non-local spaces could work. Temporal entanglement introduces the possibility of the present being influenced by significant future events. So imagine a future milestone acting as a gravitational force, pulling present actions into alignment to ensure it happens. So I guess the most rudimentary example of that would be our most recent election cycle, where we had current events that were being influenced by something that was ultimately going to happen in the future. The feedback loop. So researchers have found that these future anchors help steer our actions, thus creating a feedback loop. So you think about how your actions would change if you had a major presentation for work in 3 days from now, and you just found out. That future event's going to become a guidepost for your preparations and your actions and how you structure your time up until that point. Um, I know it's hard to see this. It's just a very simple illustration of how a strong future event could act as an anchor, creating this feedback loop with the present, influencing current actions and decisions through temporal entanglement. Um, then you have the AI effect. So where this all comes into play is this is the notion of AI being able to tap into patterns that resemble these anchors, using data to make decisions that align with future trends or goals. For example, using AI and analytics to scour the web, analyzing company data points that would lead to a better output in, for example, purchasing stocks, and then extrapolate that over millions of individual data points per individual. Next, I want to hit on intentional influence on random systems. So this is one of the most mind-bending, but yet most documented areas of consciousness research. It stems from the work of the PEAR Lab, which stands for Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Lab. The lab's been around for 30 years. It's at Princeton University. They conducted thousands of experiments exploring whether human intention could measurably influence the behavior of true random systems. And these systems weren't using just pseudo-random algorithms like your average computer would produce, but they were based on quantum level randomness that, by all definitions, should be completely immune to influence. And then in their experiments, participants would attempt to influence the output of devices like random number generators simply by focusing their thoughts. For example, steering the system to produce more ones than zeros. And while the effect size was small, over thousands of trials, the data showed statistically significant deviations between what chance alone would allow. That means across a huge data set, the outcome showed that people were measurably nudging randomness in a desired direction. Some of the key experiments that I want to call out here. One of the most fascinating examples is the chick robot experiment. So baby chicks were imprinted on a robot, meaning they believed it was their mother. The robot was their mother. And then the robot's movement was driven entirely by a true random number generator, basically rolling digital dice to decide where it's going to go. But what the researchers found was that the robot began spending more time near the chicks than it should have based on random wandering. And it was as if the chick's emotional attachment or intention caused a subtle bias in the robot's movement pattern. Um, and I think this experiment challenges our assumptions about the limits of influence beyond or between biology and machine. In another pair study, they placed a giant plant in a dark room and used a robotic arm to randomly move a light source. And over time, the light started pointing at the plant more often than chance would predict. Again, this suggests that the living systems, even a plant, may influence machines in a way that we fully don't comprehend or understand yet. Let's see, those were the key experiments. Implications for AI. So this is why this matters. If you look at today's AI systems like LLMs, they include elements of controlled randomness, which is often referred to as temperature. That means an output can vary slightly with each run. We have all seen this before. If we ask it the same question at different times a day, or even 2 to 3 minutes apart, it's going to give you a different answer in some factors. So, what if subconscious intent or emotion, even from the end user, could slightly inflict bias into that randomized process? Um, Imagine if interacting with an AI could be influenced not just by input data it's fed, but also the state of the user, or by something we fully don't comprehend, like non-local conscience fields. Yes, personally, I think this is definitely a speculative leap, but I think the Pairs Lab work and their research gives us a scientific footing to even begin questioning it. The next concept is called ASI, or artificial PSI intelligence. So here we're not talking about your standard day-to-day human. We all have all heard about people that have um, abilities like telekinesis, clairvoyance, and mental telepathy. Well, now there's a study that suggests AI might be able to turn that from an occasional instance into something everyone can tap into. It's an emerging field exploring whether AI can emulate abilities like telepathy, precognition, et cetera, through collaboration with humans. Um, so, what exactly is PSI? Again, it just refers to human claimed abilities like telepathy, precognition, psychokinesis, or other intuitive or paranormal phenomena beyond conventional science. Studies and scientific research in human PSI seek to understand how these experiences connect with consciousness, creativity, and potential insights into the human mind's untapped capabilities. When you look at AI again, bringing that in as a partner, the idea here is that since AI serves as a tool that amplifies human creativity and intention through data analysis, randomization, and feedback, is it possible to integrate with humans to enhance PSI-like capabilities? Also, to determine if AI can support intuitive wisdom, inspire art, and act as a bridge between human consciousness and computational creativity. Some of the research and test findings with this experiment, the research group ran several small informal experiments to see if AI could mimic PSI abilities in three areas: sensing, acting, and thinking. And overall, the findings in the study and the testing described in full detail that there's no concrete evidence of true psychic connections, highlighting more about AI's creative potential and unpredictability than any definitive PSI capability at this point in time. Um, all of this research and white papers that I took this from, I have in at the end of this slide deck. So if you guys are interested in reading more about those findings and things like that, I have a link for that. All right, well, remote viewing in AI. So this is another fascinating perspective. So remote viewing is the ability to access non-local information. It involves a person, often trained in this, focusing their mental sight to describe what they see in their mind's eye. Think about it as using intuition in a disciplined way. Um, I don't. I wouldn't say it's completely fringe. It's actually being used by government programs like the CIA Stargate project, not Elon's Stargate project, by the way. We still have time for Elon. But what's really fascinating is how AI could amplify this process. So remote viewers that have many years of experience in this have often stated that the conscious mind um, often gets in the way, and it sort of distorts the true signal. Um, and another wild aspect of this is that remote viewers also claim to have the ability to visualize their target in past, present, or future state. So it'll be interesting to see um, if AI or some sort of algorithm will ultimately be able to help prescriptively drive that point in time purview. Um, Another gentleman I know I spoke to on the subject is named Scott Schwichman. If you're connected with Scott, you probably already know, but if not, connect with him online. He did a research experiment on if psychic hacking via remote viewing was possible. Um, I won't go into the details, but the results were pretty interesting to say the least. This just goes into more of some of the experimental pipelines that are happening right now with remote viewing and AI. Um, a gentleman by the name of Damon Abraham is testing this. His workflow takes a random number generator, generates a target, then AI generates a transcript and an image based on random consciousness friendly input. That output is then compared against the real target, both semantically and visually, using automated similarity models. This removes the need for human judges and allows thousands of experiments to run without manual bottlenecks. Um, I don't think this is about proving psychic powers, but it's more about just testing whether subconscious influence can subtly guide a system. And then more importantly, I think it begs the question, can we scale that interaction and begin to explore a new class of intuitive predictive modeling? All right, let's shift to neural access and predictive interfaces. So we've already started building tools that connect thoughts to machines. Prediction is no longer passive, it's often inclusive. So what if AI models could decode your brain activity, interpret your imagination, and turn images from your mind into reality? Well, recent research conducted by teams from Osaka University and other institutions say it is possible now that AI can decode brain activity and reconstruct highly detailed visual images using stable diffusion and GANs to bridge the gap between neural signals and visual perception. The research relies on what's called functional MRI or fMRI to capture detailed patterns of brain activity. And then by applying advanced generative AI models, researchers were able to construct or reconstruct images that represented what individuals are seeing or even imagining. This marks a monumental milestone in understanding and visualizing brain function. So, how it works. Again, the process maps brain signals to visual images using fMRI for spatial precision and pairing it with Gen AI models. Add in EEG integration, and I say EEG because I can't pronounce what that actually stands for. Um, and that could really enhance the system by capturing rapid brain activity, enabling real-time predictions. So together, these technologies make it possible to visualize thoughts and images with incredible accuracy. Of course, you have to add in the implications and applications stemming from this ability. So, being able to diagnose neural and psychological conditions more quickly and frequently, uncovering ways and methods for developing technology for brain to device communication. And then on the flip side, you obviously have the ethical concerns now with the ability to read someone's thoughts, memories, and intentions, as well as the potential to predict someone's future actions, choices, and behavior. And so everybody's seen this movie, Minority Report. Um, and this is sort of what we're talking about here, right? So in a sense, this is the real life Minority Report. Imagine being able to arrest someone before a crime is even committed if this gets out of control. Take a look at this. These are AirPods with brain computer interface technology. So Apple now has a patent to include this functionality in future generations of AirPods. At this point in time, I think this was filed over a year ago. Um, if you dig into it a little bit more, you'll see that within the article it says practical applications include but aren't limited to controlling music playback and other services simply through thought, navigating devices or environments with thought, providing medical insights such as detecting cognitive decline or mental health problems. Apple's not saying this, but this is essentially where this technology is going, or assisting people with disabilities like controlling wheelchair or assistive devices. So essentially, the AirPods are an external BCI. And in terms of this technology, this is just one example of how major corporations are trying to find use cases for this technology. Predictive systems that shape lives. So as predictions become more personal, we really need to ask the question of who is actually in control. Ethical implications. I think this is probably the most important slide when it comes to this topic of AI and humanity. Um, AI's impact on free will, privacy, and autonomy. By the way, when it comes to free will, I don't know if you guys have read Win Schwartz's book, The Art of the Meta War. If you haven't picked that up, it's a great book. It talks about how channels like social media and other underlying directives are sort of directing us in a way where we still have free will, but we're also being manipulated by the stimuli around us. So pretty interesting take. Um, Practical applications. So what you need to consider here: decision making, bias and fairness, emotional support, emotional guidance or misguidance. For an example of emotional misguidance, let's see if this works. But we can. I have a video, a news clip from just last year. Let's see if this works. Maybe not. It's not working. Anyway, it was the character AI situation where the mother was suing character AI because it guided a suicide in the family. So um, it was on the news last year, and a pretty sad truth that doesn't. It's not the first time that it's happened. And then just to show you how the insanity is going in both directions on this, you also now have AI Jesus. If you have never heard of AI Jesus, AI, a church in Switzerland last year revealed that it's using an AI-powered Jesus hologram to take confession, which, as you can imagine, has been very, very controversial. Which sort of leads into my next bullet point of social, religious, and political ramifications. Advocacy groups that strongly adhere to their own belief systems that conflict with many of these theories and concepts. Um, the Hippocratic Oath. So, the Hippocratic Oath is something that every physician who becomes a physician has to take. It's been happening since the times of ancient Greece, and essentially means that doctors will do no harm. And I think this is relatable here because it begs the concept or begs the question of what is harm? How do you define harm? And it could be very subjective to who you're asking. There is a need for ethical frameworks to govern predictive AI and to do that on a global scale. And we're going to have to figure out how we're going to move the lines of ethics and societal acceptability before we, I think, get anywhere at a point in time and we start dividing. We have the dividing line of fantasy and reality, and we kind of need to start erasing that line and figure out how we are going to become universally normalized in order for this to happen. I don't have the answer, but that's what I have, and I'm sticking with it. So, last one is pretty interesting: behavioral nudging versus cognitive bias. So there was an experiment performed by a gentleman named Daniel Kahneman, where people were asked, how old was Gandhi when he died? Was he 103? Others were asked the same question with a different number. Was he 35? Both obviously wrong answers, but depending on which number was shown first, people guessed drastically different ages. And this is a method called anchoring bias, and it works. It's a very common sales tactic. But now picture that same manipulation embedded into AI algorithms that personalize your feeds, your purchases, or even your worldview. So these systems wouldn't just respond to you, they would in a way start shaping your belief. And then when we link those biases to predictive AI, it's no longer just forecasting behavior, it's sort of engineering it. The considerations here are: what are the legal frameworks around this, and how do we implement them at scale without halting innovation or research efforts? All right, so here are three areas I'll run through real quick that we can't ignore, I think, when we're discussing AI's effect on fate or human outcome. First one, AI fueled warfare. So not long ago, I think it was last year, we saw that Google uncovered the first 0-day in SQLite. This was Google looking at it from a purple team perspective. Also, Google's OSS Fuzz team, who recently found 26 vulnerabilities using AI. And then lastly, combat tactics enhanced by AI. We're all hearing about this now. Essentially the Western cultures have already agreed that we're not going to use AI for weaponization and increase of military presence, but that's the Western countries. Like, you still have China, you still have Iran. And if you take a country that's equipped with a dedicated offset LLM, for example, that could spawn the next wave of APTs that are completely unmanned. So it's crazy to think about. AI fueled medical procedures. We all know this one as well. So AI's capability to accelerate healing time or design augmentation abilities that would allow a person to rehabilitate faster or function more effectively than ever. This could increase their longevity in some cases. And then on the flip side, what happens if that data store is compromised? We all know that AIs are only as good as the data that they're pulling from. So if you could corrupt the data store, then you could potentially cause disruption within surgeries, diagnoses, medications, health plans, and more, which could have an adverse effect and decrease longevity. As a side note, not mentioned here, but I did read recently about a $900 million hospital in New Jersey now. It's all built around AI powered tech, smart beds, real time location tracking, AI driven video surveillance. So all these things are starting to be coming into the real world more and more often. AI fueled transportation. Everybody loves this one. The interaction between human and AI driven transportation. Ideally, you have the notion of enhanced safety and saving lives by reducing accidents, assisting drivers, detecting maintenance issues earlier on. Although you have the instances like the Waymo robotaxi that hit somebody in California. which was, I think, an important event that underscored vulnerability in the autonomous vehicle's ability to safely navigate complex urban environments. And if that's not enough for you, go check out the emergence of pilotless air taxis. These are like fully autonomous, unmanned quadcopters that are massive drone Ubers. Um, so I'll be walking home. I want to mention a few examples just really quickly that I've seen implemented in the real world. So Fractal Rabbit, this is an interesting one. I haven't heard much of it, but apparently this was an NSA developed open source project developed in 2022, and it was built to simulate human mobility patterns, generating realistic data on movement behaviors. And so by modeling sporadic adaptive choices, it was able to prove how predictive AI can anticipate even non-routine actions based on previous patterns and demonstrate AI's growing ability to mimic complex human decision making. What's interesting is I was not able to find much of anything outside of their GitHub. And this is, again, an NSA developed program. So it just makes me, wonder, is it working too well or has development ceased? I don't know. If anybody can find anything on that, it'll be interesting. The next one's called LIBM, which stands for Latent Inference Budget Model. So in April last year, a study from researchers at MIT and the University of Washington revealed this, this model that can accurately predict a person or machine's future actions. The study's authors claim that LIBM is better than other previously proposed framework capable of modeling human decision-making. Use cases that were tested against include chess strategy modeling, maze navigation, and human-computer interaction. Impact on humanity here, deeper insight into how humans make decisions under cognitive and behavioral constraints, showing how AI predictions can assist in shaping policies and addressing large-scale complex challenges, having systems that better anticipate human needs while optimizing user experiences. Again, the ethical questions that it raises about personal consent, AI tooling's ability to understand routines, behaviors, and communications, and then obviously the challenges on the views on free will. I'll end it with this one. Life to Vec AI. I came across this and I was like, you have to be kidding me. But apparently there is a model out there that is designed to predict the time of death as well as financial aspects. I think this is more about at what point do you draw the line in predictive algorithms. But I don't know if you can see it. There's super small print, but it says extensively researched by experts and rigorously tested. Its calculator is highly credible. But then the next line underneath it says, in a fun and innovative manner. Individuals can access their health and receive targeted health advice. So in this case, I think the information you're getting is entirely falsified, but more as an entertainment value. And although this may not be completely legit yet, I think it's going to be a glimpse into what we're going to continue to see as these concepts develop. You actually see it now to some degree in health insurance companies raising rates for active smokers or car insurance rates to accident-prone individuals. If pure data points become more widely available, I'm sure we're going to see something similar to this being used, and not for the truly forecasting your demise, but more because it's financially lucrative. So I know that last example was a little bit extreme, although even when AI does give you an accurate prediction, whether it's a chess move, a life decision, or even a projected death date, we may never truly know where that insight comes from. Is it the output of a very complex predictive algorithm, or could the subconscious state of the user be influencing the output, especially if the AI is using stochastic processes like randomness or temperature in an LLM? This uncertainty challenges how we evaluate predictive AI. If randomness is involved and intention can bias randomness, as we've seen with some of the experiments, then prediction isn't just about logic. It could involve an interaction. Again, that's sort of beyond our comprehension at this point in time. I'm going to wrap things up. I think we got 5 minutes. So we've taken a look at AI predictive's potential and its possible impact on human lives, from medical implications and social applications to more speculative existential concepts. Moving forward, it's critical for us to weigh the ethical implications and practical benefits of predictive AI. And we should be asking the questions like, how do we measure AI's influence on human decisions? How do we ensure AI supports human welfare rather than infringing upon it? And how can we enable AI acceleration from a 360-degree view, while studying all the use cases possible? Let me go back. But I think, my main takeaway with this, and if you take anything away from this, is just to challenge yourself to read new theories, try to follow new research that drops at that, sort of spawns outside of the corporate world. Um, it's not really a moment in time right now to stay closed-minded. And I want to reference a good friend of mine, Justin Hutchins, who said, never to dismiss the notion of science fiction. For us, questioning the impossible, we're living in 1980s science fiction right now. We have no flying cars, we have no teleportation, but we also are doing some crazy things with AI that you could not even fathom back then. That would have been an impossibility. So just try to think outside of the box, question the possibilities, question the impossibilities. And the common denominator that I've taken away from speaking with AI experts, working with them, is that no one knows where this is taking us tomorrow and how AI will affect it. And I think that's the beauty of just being able to explore it. That's all I got. I made time. If you guys want to snap a picture of this, or I can give you the deck afterwards, just kind of just links to everything I referenced throughout the presentation. So that's all I got. Thank you.